At our anniversary party, my wife thought she was delivering the knockout blow. Instead, she handed me the setup for one of the most surreal nights of my life. I'm 38, my wife Natalie is 36, and we've been married for 12 years. No kids, supposedly by choice, though I'm now realizing that might have only been my understanding. Her younger sister Bethany, 34, has always hovered around our relationship like an unwanted shadow. She's perpetually single, bitter about it, and constantly feeding Natalie toxic lines about men being useless and marriage being a trap. About half a year ago, things started to change. Natalie became more guarded with her phone. Suddenly she had girls' nights 3 times a week. Then I noticed small withdrawals, $500 here, $700 there, from our joint savings into her personal account. When I asked, she brushed it off as investing in herself through online courses. I didn't press it too much. It was her money too, after all. Or so I thought. The truth revealed itself in the sloppiest way possible. 2 months back, at a family wedding, Bethany got plastered and couldn't resist running her mouth. She started hinting that some anniversaries mark endings instead of beginnings, that there's a kind of power in publicly serving someone with divorce papers so they can't dodge it. She giggled like she had just spoiled the punchline of a joke only she understood. That's when I knew something was up. I began digging. In Natalie's purse, I found a lawyer's business card, Olai and Associates, a divorce firm. After some quiet research, I learned she had been to 3 consultations. She and Bethany had even put a deposit on a new apartment together, set to start next month. The writing was on the wall. I was going to be blindsided. Here's where the story gets layered. 8 years ago, Natalie inherited her grandmother's old, nearly worthless house. It was in her name alone. I poured my entire $80,000 inheritance from my father into fixing it up. Roof, plumbing, kitchen, everything. I also did most of the labor myself. What was once worth $60,000 jumped to $280,000 by the time we moved out. We eventually rented it out for $2,200 a month, and Natalie kept the income since it was technically her family's property. I let it slide, thinking that's what trust in marriage was about. When I realized she was plotting against me, I consulted my own lawyer. He explained that I had a strong claim to most of the property's increased value because of the money and sweat I'd invested. If things went to court, I could walk away with up to 70% of the house. But instead of prepping for war, I went for something more elegant. 2 weeks before our anniversary, I pitched Natalie an idea. I told her I'd been thinking about the future and wanted to restructure our assets for tax purposes. Since I'm self-employed, it would be smart to move the rental property into my name, so I could take the deductions. In return, I'd sign over our current home, which we own jointly, entirely to her. She jumped on it without hesitation, believing she was getting the sweeter deal. Our house is worth $350,000 with $100,000 left on the mortgage. The rental's $280,000 and completely paid off. To her, it looked like a win. 5 days before the party, we signed everything. All above board. Filed. Sealed. Done. Then came the big night. Natalie insisted on a large celebration. Private dining room, fancy restaurant, 40 guests including friends, family, and even some of my colleagues. She was practically glowing, as if she was holding the world's funniest inside joke. Halfway through dinner, after the champagne toasts, Bethany rose to her feet with this smug grin plastered across her face. She made a little speech about her sister deserving better, then strutted over to me and slapped an envelope on the table. "Consider yourself served," she announced. The room froze. I opened the envelope, saw the divorce papers, and couldn't help myself. I started laughing. Not bitterly, not like I'd lost my mind, but genuinely amused. "Perfect timing," I said, reaching into my jacket. "I've got papers too." I handed Natalie the envelope I'd brought. She opened it, and her face drained of color instantly. Inside were the signed deeds for the rental house, the ones she had transferred to me for tax purposes. I spoke loudly enough for the whole room to hear. "These are the deeds for the rental property. Remember signing them last week? You agreed to this. It protects our assets." "My assets?" "The $80,000 I put in plus years of my work." Natalie stammered. But you said." I said it would protect our assets, I replied. And it does. Mine. Besides, my lawyer says I could have claimed most of the value in the divorce anyway. This way, we avoided a messy fight. Bethany snatched the papers, glaring at me. This can't be legal. You tricked her. Tricked her. I repeated. Her own lawyer reviewed those documents. She signed them willingly. Just like she thought she was about to trick me with these divorce papers. The difference is, I played the game better. The silence that followed was absolute. 40 witnesses. A ruined ambush. And me, walking away with everything they thought they were taking. The room had fallen into complete silence, the kind that presses on your chest. Natalie's mother finally broke it with a sharp question. What divorce papers? That was when the chaos truly began. After I revealed that the divorce papers were in fact property transfer deeds, Natalie scrambled to salvage the moment. She stood, her voice wavering but loud enough for the crowd, insisting this was all a misunderstanding. According to her, we were simply taking a break. She wanted to spin it into something temporary, but the damage was already irreversible. Bethany, her ever-loyal sister, had already uploaded a glowing Instagram post. So proud to see my sister finally freeing herself from her toxic marriage. Divorce power, sisters before misters. The smugness dripped from her caption. By the time the truth unraveled, the post aged worse than spoiled milk. Natalie's parents were horrified. Her father, Raymond, quietly pulled me aside, apologizing with a weary sincerity. He admitted he'd grown suspicious weeks earlier when Natalie had begged him for a $5,000 emergency loan, but refused to explain what it was for. Now he realized that money had gone toward hiring her lawyer. Then came my mother's turn. She hadn't flown across the country just to sit quietly in the corner. Rising from her seat, her tone razor sharp, she said, "Well, since surprises seem to be the theme tonight, let me add one of my own. That $80,000 my son invested into the rental house? It came from his father's life insurance. His father who is no longer alive. Natalie, you knew this was his way of honoring his dad's memory, and you were about to humiliate him with divorce papers at a party we paid for." Her words were like a blade. Natalie froze, speechless. To add insult, my mom revealed she'd chipped in $3,000 to cover party costs because Natalie had claimed we were short on money. The hypocrisy was undeniable. Within minutes, Natalie and Bethany vanished, slinking off in an Uber while most guests stayed behind. What should have been an anniversary dinner turned into an impromptu rally of support for me. One of my co-workers fetched a bottle of whiskey from his car. And by the end of the night, we'd practically taken over the restaurant. The next morning, I woke to 67 unread text messages from Natalie. They ranged wildly: rage, guilt, pleading, manipulation. Accusations that I was cruel. Claims that the rental was her grandmother's legacy. Cries of "you're a monster," followed by softer lines like, "Can we talk?" I responded once, and only once. All communication goes through lawyers now. You chose this process, and I'm only following through. Bethany, predictably, refused to back down. She launched a smear campaign, painting me as financially abusive, a manipulator who trapped her sister. She even called my office, warning my boss that I was dangerous and should be fired. Unfortunately for her, my boss had attended the party. He told her if she harassed him again, he'd report her. But Natalie escalated further. She stormed into my workplace with her new attorney, Holloway, demanding an urgent meeting. We ended up holding an impromptu conference in the break room. Her team in person, mine joining by video call. Holloway tried to argue that Natalie had been tricked into signing over the rental property. My lawyer calmly produced the email chain showing her previous attorney had reviewed and signed off on the transfer, even noting, "This appears advantageous for my client." Backed into a corner, Holloway shifted strategies, insisting Natalie wasn't of sound mind when she signed. My lawyer responded instantly. Was she in a sound state when planning to ambush her husband with divorce papers at their anniversary party? Because her sister's Instagram posts from weeks ago show this plan wasn't impulsive. Natalie broke down, tears streaming as she cried. "That house means everything to me. It's all I have left of my grandmother." That was the moment I spoke up. "You haven't visited your grandmother's grave in 3 years. You wanted to sell the house before I fixed it up. You called it a money pit, a burden. I have the text to prove it. Holloway eventually asked what I wanted. My response was simple. The divorce. A clean break. And for her to stop spreading lies that I tricked her when she's the one who tried to humiliate me. He pressed about the house she lived in currently. I explained. That one's hers, free and clear. A $350,000 property, with only $100,000 left on the mortgage. I'm left with the $280,000 rental, debt-free but with tenants and the work of managing it. That's fair. But the storm didn't calm. Natalie and Bethany doubled down, telling anyone who'd listened that I'd schemed for months to rob Natalie of her inheritance. They left out the little detail about ambushing me at my own anniversary party. Some mutual friends fell for their narrative, saying even if Natalie's behavior was wrong, my move was too cold. I didn't argue. If they couldn't see the truth, I didn't need them. Those who were at the party knew exactly what had gone down. Then Bethany crossed a line she couldn't walk back. She showed up at the rental house and told my tenants, an older couple named Dorothy and Eugene, that they needed to start paying rent to Natalie because the transfer was fraudulent and about to be overturned. She spun them a whole story about how I'd stolen the house from her sister. Thankfully, Dorothy and Eugene called me immediately, confused but wanting clarification. I showed them the signed deed. Furious, they not only refused Bethany's demands but agreed to sign affidavits about her lies. My lawyer sent Bethany a cease and desist order. She ignored it within a day. She returned to the rental, this time with Natalie, armed with tools to change the locks. Dorothy called the police. The result? Both Natalie and Bethany were charged with attempted breaking and entering and criminal trespass. That was the moment reality finally slapped Natalie's family. Raymond called me not long after, his voice heavy but honest. I see now why you did what you did. I understand why you protected yourself. Beth has always been a bad influence, but I didn't realize it ran this deep. And for the first time in weeks, I could hear genuine clarity in his voice. Beth had been living with her parents ever since her divorce 2 years ago. Her ex-husband left after discovering she was sleeping with her personal trainer. And because of an ironclad prenup, she walked away with nothing. Since then, she'd carried a deep resentment toward men, and most of that got directed at me. I wanted no part of her chaos, so I hired a property management company to oversee the rental house. That way, neither she nor Natalie would have any excuse to show up. It turned out to be the right move. During an inspection, the company found over $3,000 worth of damage to the garage door and fence. Security footage revealed that Beth had tried breaking in after the police had already left. That added destruction of property to the charges she was facing. Suddenly, she wasn't just a nuisance, she was looking at real jail time. Natalie's lawyer reached out to mine, desperate to negotiate. Beth's criminal mess was destroying her life, and taking a toll on Natalie as well. My terms were clear and non-negotiable. Proceed with the divorce exactly as filed. No claims on the rental property. Natalie keeps the houses already transferred. No alimony either way. Beth pays restitution. And both of them stay away from me and the rental. On top of that, I required a written acknowledgement that the property transfer was legal and valid. They pushed back, but I didn't budge. I held every card. In the end, they folded. Natalie signed, and the divorce was finalized, uncontested and clean. In court, she tried to meet my eyes, but I kept mine fixed on my lawyer's notepad. Beth pled guilty to trespassing and criminal mischief, received 6 months probation, had to pay the $3,000 back, and is now barred by a restraining order from coming within 500 feet of me or the rental. The fallout didn't stop there. Natalie's parents, disgusted by their daughter's actions, rewrote their will. Beth lost her share entirely, and Natalie's portion was reduced, the difference redirected to charity. Her father, Raymond, told me they wanted to set things right. He said I had been a good son-in-law, even if his daughters never appreciated it. Natalie made one last attempt to pull me back in. Through her lawyer, she sent a letter, not a legal document, just a plea. She wrote about our early love, how she still cared for me, and claimed Beth had poisoned her against me. She admitted she had been plotting that anniversary ambush for 8 months, deceiving me every single day while pretending things were normal. She framed it as regret, as if expecting me to sympathize. I ignored it. Meanwhile, the rental house thrived. I raised the rent by $200, still below market value, and the tenants gladly paid it because they loved living there. That brought in an extra $400 each month from a property that was already paid off. My financial advisor calculated that move alone shaved 5 years off my retirement timeline. News about Natalie and Beth drifted back to me through mutual connections. Natalie was barely keeping up with the mortgage on her house. She had been banking on alimony and half the rental income, but without either, she was drowning. Her parents helped, but made it clear it wouldn't be forever. Beth, on the other hand, crashed harder. Unemployed, back under her parents' roof after being kicked out of her lease for noise complaints and threatening neighbors. At 34, with a criminal record, her life was unraveling. She even made her Instagram private, though people told me she was ranting about the justice system being rigged against women. Then came a text from an unfamiliar number. It was Natalie, borrowing a friend's phone. She wrote that losing me was the biggest mistake of her life, that Beth had poisoned our marriage, and that she was finally in therapy trying to figure out why she let it happen. I blocked the number. People sometimes ask if I regret how it all played out. The truth? I only regret not recognizing the signs earlier. They plotted to humiliate me, destroy me financially, and make me into the villain. Instead, their plan collapsed under its own weight. Everything I did was legal, verified by lawyers, and filed properly with the court. Now I'm dating again. I keep things honest and share what happened up front. Most women are horrified by the anniversary ambush scheme. One even told me, anyone who'd do that deserves whatever karma they get. And that's exactly what happened. Karma showed up, documented, notarized, and stamped by the county clerk.